Alright, now that Worlds is wrapped up, let me give you the 7 best moments from DGLO history to make you get hyped up over an event that may not be that hype, but we'll see.
Oh, nice shot. Terry, 5 minutes.
Pick left.
We gotta just start with the negatives because we really don't know how it'll all pan out. But the first one being, we have 4 rounds at the same course with basically the same layout. I know they have an A and B position, but that's only a couple of holes and it really doesn't amount to that much change. Then we have the same at GMC, then we also have the same at Maple Hill, and then we round out the season with USDGC and the Pro Tour Championship. So if the players were burnt out before, they will definitely be burnt out after this season. That's okay, only have a couple weeks left. But even though it is 4 rounds of the exact same course, I do think this is one of the best courses on the entire tour. With so much elevation, it will really wear you down, much like Ivy Hill last week. But because of that, there are so many crazy elevation shots that really test your ability to throw distance. And that leads me to the very first moment, that being Eagle McMahon throwing a 450-foot forehand while straddling a guardrail. Only the stuff of legends, and I truly don't think anybody else could do this. So when he did land, and I think circle 1, it was truly an astonishment with proper technique and power on your forehands. But I'm sure I'll never be throwing even close to that on my forehands. So for now, I'll just look in awe and wonder. Coming in at number 2, it has to be the perfect round from Paul Macbeth. Now, as I've stated before, I don't think this perfect round would hold true today. But honestly, who even cares? Because this was such an amazing display of consistency on a course that has none, requiring Paul to go 100% C1, 100% C2, which include a 38-footer on 1, 38-footer on 9, a 60-footer on hole 5, an eagle on hole 2, and despite getting par on hole 10. But the real display of dominance was the final putt for a 50-foot birdie. And it really just showed where the skill ceiling truly is if you do devote your entire life to disc golf. And while I truly don't think Paul will ever get back to that same level of conditioning, it was such an amazing era, and if he only finished 2 under in the final round, he would have gone to a playoff. He did not need any extra strokes, but it did not matter. And a player that literally doesn't even have an active membership, but this Michigan-based 994 player, Willie Prince, had a 14 under in the final round, which ended up only being 1072, which is kind of crazy. But with that insane final round, he secures 2nd place, which was still 9 strokes back from Paul. But it really shows if you do have the power, you can score really good on this course, which lends itself to some very interesting winners, which I hope we get to see soon this weekend. But knowing how hot the top players are playing right now, I kind of doubt it. And number 3, it has to be Calvin versus Corey playoff. And at this current point in Corey's career, he was just a grinder. He had been playing so many events, turned pro in 2014. It looked like he was so close to a lot of wins, but just never really had enough things click for him to actually secure an Elite Series win. But throughout this entire final round, he had so many good things going for him, with 4 birdies in the first 6 holes, an insane throw in on hole 10, but then the momentum quickly shifted to Calvin after a bogey on 15, and it looked like Calvin could just run away with it. But then Corey just clutched up and birdied the last 3 holes, ending the round with 25 under, matching Calvin. And so we have some playoffs, and hole 1 being such a big bomb, and after playing 3 full rounds here, you're going to be a little bit tired, and that may have played a bit of a factor. But even though Calvin only got par in the last 2 holes, he did have a very clutch par save on hole 17 from a very pinched off position. But with that first hole, he goes a little bit deep right, and it wasn't out of bounds, but it was definitely kind of impossible to birdie. But at that point, it looked like Corey had the win. All he had to do was just get like in circle 1 and he would secure the win. But Corey's drive goes deep by just a couple of inches into the out of bounds, and he cards basically the bogey. He never actually finished the hole, but he loses in the most sad fashion. But with that said, he did conclude the following year with a European Open win, so I think he's going to be all right. And number 4, it has to be Kristin's first Elite Series win. Now, this is kind of a crazy perspective to think of a world where Kristin has not won a single event, but I'm pretty sure she never actually went to the US until 2020, and this was only mid-July, so it still was kind of in that mid-season era. But starting the final round, Paige was leading by 2 strokes over Kristin, and cards the insane triple bogey, going out of bounds and missing a circle 1 putt. But then after that, her round was basically on par with Kristin, securing 9 birdies, but Kristin was starting to figure out her confidence levels and figure out how to hit these shot shapes and do it very consistently, carding 0 bogeys with a couple of good putts, but really nothing was that standout until we get to hole 17. And we had this crazy roll away from Sarah Hokum, big rip, and like Sarah Hokum says, this is critical. If she does miss this, she probably will go into a playoff, but there's no guarantee she will win against Paige, who is so dominant at this point in time. But being like the catalyst into her entire professional career, this happens and jams it in from so far away.
What a great finish by Kristin.
And Kristin wins her first Elite Series.
Congratulations on your first Disc Golf Pro Tour victory.
It's hard.
because I've been waiting for this for a long time. And I mean, like, Worlds was tough, and like the following weeks were tough, and I just couldn't like find myself on the course and didn't really recognize myself. And now I'm really proud of myself that I just kept fighting no matter what, and whatever happened on the course, I just kept going. Yeah. Thank you.
And number 5, a bit of a cheat, but I still think it's really cool. Eagles back-to-back win here, which included another crazy shot from hole 15. Super out of position, goes around the trees to somehow get in circle 1 on a shot that he was so pinched off and had no right getting that close. It just really showed how dominant he was the entire event. But to go along with that, there also was a crazy shot from the same position as Eagle from Kyle that was actually like literally in the road, and he threw this crazy backhand hyzer. But that was a little less cool because it wasn't a standstill forehand, literally straddling the rail. And then there also was a crazy throw-in from Emerson. So all in all, definitely a memorable event. And I actually don't have 7. I thought I was gonna have 7, I didn't. But I will just be including a couple of clips being last year, 2023, where Simon narrowly edged out Eagle from securing his 3rd win here and fighting off a Calvin that was throwing some of the most insane lines the entire season. All right, one of the best DGLOs I think I've ever seen. You could definitely argue that Paul's perfect round met that criteria, but for me, there was so much electricity going on in this event because you had so many players that were fighting for the win. At one point, there was like 7 people in first place. It's total madness. Do you know what you're doing? So at this point, he was actually tied for first with 1 under, which you might be thinking like, oh yeah, I mean, that's still decent, whatever. But then he entered the shadow realm and it was just madness. Pull it together, had some bad OBs, ultimately didn't even have that great of a circle 2 percentage in his final round. He did have a couple of good 50 footers in round 2, ball to get something crazy, even though Simon did have the lead for a bit. And with some of the most insane putts, went straight out of bounds, making it a very good opportunity for Simon to take charge. And he did some of the most insane things I've ever seen in a tournament. He went straight OB, and because the OB is lined right after the basket, there really is no penalty. He gains a stroke on Eagle, and he finishes par and gets the freaking DGLO championship. But ultimately, Simon was just looking cool, calm, and collected. So with that, hopefully that makes you a little bit more hype over an event that may easily get overshadowed with Worlds just wrapping up and another huge distance course for 4 rounds that may be a bit repetitive, but I still think it'll be incredibly hype. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe. I have a lot of fun stuff coming. Wild Runs, signing out. Peace. Coming in at number 2, it has to be the perfect round from Paul Macbeth. And number 3, it has to be Calvin versus Corey playoff. And number 4, it has to be Kristin's first Elite Series win.